Hello, entrepreneurs, and yeah, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you're watching from. Tonight we have a very special live broadcast for you guys about a unique volunteer project. So yeah, the title is LA Fire Sparks Help Now, the digital assistant for global crisis aid. Yeah, welcome Cynthia, Jess, and Nick. Great to have you here.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you're watching and listening in, please drop your questions or comments in LinkedIn or another platform you're watching from. So we will for sure do our best to answer your questions right away during the show. That's the nice thing about doing this stuff live, not pre-recorded. Yeah, so let's just dive in. Maybe you three can all briefly introduce yourself and tell about your role in this project, and then we'll dive in, of course, deeper later on. Yeah, Cynthia, why don't you kick off?
Thank you, Baron. Thank you for having us. And hello, everyone. I'm Cynthia Leimbach. I am the founder and president of HelpNow, Inc., a volunteer effort aspiring NGO dedicated to providing real time life saving resources to communities in crisis due to natural disasters. I'm also the lead conversation designer at University of Phoenix and a mentor at AI for All and Entrepreneurs. Thanks for having us. Dr. Jess?
Cool. Yeah.
Hey, thank you for having me. So I'm Jess Mendoza. I'm currently a UX researcher for a fintech organization, and I also volunteer from time to time on ADP list. I served as the lead AI and human experience specialist here at LAHelp.now. LAHelpNow.org. Oh my goodness. And I am also a member of the Swarm community where I am pushing awareness for education and AI. Pass it over to Nick.
Hi everyone, my name's Nick Thompson. I am the general manager at a company called Gotbot in South Africa, and within this project I found myself helping on the UX and voice flow team. I think that's it. Yeah, that's where I fit in.
Cool. Yeah, so Cynthia, yeah, you live in really close to LA, and that's also the reason this project unfortunately started, although it's a really cool project. But maybe you can tell a bit more how this idea originated.
Sure, thank you. So I am a native Los Angelian. Jess is also. We are both natives here. And like you said, a couple of months ago, during the horrific wildfires that Los Angeles and surrounding cities experienced, like so many, I wanted to help, right? Like, what do I do? How can I make a difference? If we weren't involved directly by the wildfires this time around, what skills did I have that I could use to help? And so really, I think I woke up on Friday morning. It was kind of 2 days after the fires had started, and I'd been thinking, what can I do to help? I just build bots. Like, how can that be helpful? Well, in my home, I don't know about yours, I don't watch a lot of the news. I don't have a television. I use television for movies sometimes. Okay, let's be honest, I'm binge watching, but no television news, right? No energy. So to have that energy in my house for 48 hours was different. And I also picked up my devices, and I'm on computers all day for work. And I was looking at super amazing resources like FEMA and the Red Cross. But the challenge was, people are listening to this crappy news broadcast, for, vital information. And there was no one place with all the resources now, right? So then I was like, wait a minute, I know what we can do. And the rest was history. I'm very fortunate to work in a super agile, innovative environment at University of Phoenix. And we have a lot of hackathons. So it's not uncommon for us to build something in a day or two or four. And that mindset really gave birth to some of the initial volunteers who swarmed and helped co-create this and opened it up. And the love I received, and I'll stop talking soon, I promise. The love I received when I opened it up to LinkedIn, and I'll turn to Dr. Jess because she can speak to this, was incredible. When I kind of did a calling all cars, I am not, full disclosure, I am not a DJ, and I am not an influencer. And I thought, I'll just put it out there. I'll just go to LinkedIn and my Botrepreneurs community and see what happens. And 2 weeks later, we had 40 volunteers and growing. So, Dr. Jess, I'll turn it over to you because I know you have your own version.
Yeah, so, when the fires were out, again, we do try to keep up to date with the news, to stay in touch with what's happening in the world, but it did become very overwhelming to the point where I was like, I don't know, I feel like my hands are tied and I don't really know how to help in this situation. So naturally, I'm scrolling on my LinkedIn, keeping up to date with all my professional people here, and I see a post by Cynthia, and she's like, hey, does anyone want to volunteer and do something about what's happening with the LA fires? I have an idea. And I was a little hesitant because I was like, I'm not sure how I can leverage my expertise. I mean, I'm very passionate about AI. I am passionate about improving the human experience, but I'm not really sure what the vision is here. I hit her up on LinkedIn and she's like, hey, everyone can help. You don't need a specific skill set. You just need this desire to want to be involved. And the rest is history. She created this environment on Discord where we could just go chat about it. We had a Saturday kickoff. And yeah, it took up from there. So I'll pass it to Nick and see.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in here. So yeah, what was really nice was how quickly we were moving, and I think that hackathon kind of culture is what got us moving. We initially started building our first prototype in Chatbot Builder, and it was really great, and it really was great. But we struggled because there were kind of lack of tools that we needed to collaborate, and this is one of the things that made the collaboration slightly more complex, was having 40 different volunteers dispersed throughout the world could potentially be quite a difficult thing, and we needed to have a tool that was easy for us to collaborate with. And so we had a really cool demo built in Chatbot Builder, and then we that's when VoiceFlow came along and were super awesome and gave us their tool to use and build. And I think that collaboration within the VoiceFlow tool actually helped us move quite quickly because we were able to agree on what we were trying to build. And I think just the UX of the VoiceFlow platform made it quite easy for us to align on exactly what we were testing, but also the types of functionality that we wanted to play around with. I mean, remember in the beginning, we built it to try and manage the intent and utterances. So if people ask for a very specific thing, it takes them to the exact part of the bot. But what we kind of found with more iterations was that we needed to build more granular kind of workflows that if a user is looking for help, they can get to where their destination is immediately, or if they're looking to volunteer their help, that they can find exactly where it is that they need to be in the menu. So VoiceFlow answered a lot of that. But maybe Jess, you want to talk about kind of just the actual tasks, because we didn't really have there was a full system in place to manage those tasks in the beginning. We iterated through quite a few things, and I think that actually was quite central because that was the hub of how we kept moving.
Do you mean the tasks of the team members?
Yes, because we needed to make sure that we were moving something forward, and the problem is that sometimes the problem is so big that not that one person doesn't understand the full puzzle, and you're needing to make decisions where everyone can talk on the same, comparing apples with apples. So we jumped from Jira, from Trello. We used that initially.
Probably like 4 of them.
Google Sheets, Google Documents, Trello, and Trello is great.
Discord was a whole new thing to learn, right?
And then Jess being amazing. Maybe you want to tell the story on your side.
Meanwhile, new volunteers signed up as well, right?
Can we pause before Jess goes into this amazing nugget? Because I feel like that's the biggie here, which is what did we create, right? We're talking bot language, and for people listening and joining, it's a low latency website landing page that you can go to where everything's gathered in one place, and it's very simple. LAHelpNow was our MVP, and it had 2 pathways. I should say. I need help now, or I want to help now. Below that is a small statement about what we do, a place for you to donate if you feel guided to do so. But really, Lala, is our nod to Los Angeles. That's our chatbot. So that's what we're talking about right now, you guys. Lala lives on the LAHelpNow.org website. And Jess, I'll turn it over to you to talk about some of your superpowers and how you've helped the team.
Yeah, so like Nick was saying, we didn't have a lot of the tools that most tech industries have to keep organized. And when you work in an environment where you do have access to Jira and Teams, and you could just hop on a call very quickly, it's a luxury, because we were just kind of like freestyling this. We were like, okay, and still today it amazes me how we were able to come up with the MVP in such a short amount of time, given all the barriers that we faced. And I think the root of that is having this environment that is safe, that is, you can fail safely, you can ask your dumb questions. And in fact, they're not even deemed as dumb questions. They are just questions. And it's a place that you can grow. And I do want to give kudos again to Cynthia, Nick, everyone involved, including you, Baron, for providing that environment for us to bring our authentic selves, bring our ideas to the table, and take it off from there. And now what we ended up doing is we had help from Ann Cantera. She's a very awesome conversational designer. And she reached out to Daniel from VoiceFlow, and Daniel was able to give us some free seats so that we could have that sponsorship and move along more quickly. I also reached out to Angel, CEO of FreeCam. Thank you, Angel. He donated some free seats to us as well so that we could be more organized. We had the free version of Trello, but then when that closed out, we were like, well, where do we get organized now?
What happened to all our work again?
Yeah. So, yeah, thank you to Angel Grablev for that. Very much appreciated.
Yeah, and is watching, by the way. She already posted some hearts in the comments.
Hey, Ann.
Thank you, Ann. And I want to say real quick, we've even had recent offers from different organizations beyond. Thank you, Daniel and Angel from VoiceFlow and FreeCamp. Hello. And it's just overwhelming, the goodness that and people wanting to help. The kudos that we're getting from CEOs and the stakeholders around the world is really impressive. So
yeah, cool.
It's a good sign.
I think.
Go ahead, Nick.
No, I think maybe just on top of that is, as Cynthia, you mentioned earlier when we were chatting just about how a lot of doors get opened when we're talking about something that we're trying to help people. And it's also like volunteers, it hasn't been, but it could potentially be like herding cats. And I think what's really been quite great is we've had quite a big task that we've tried to do. And I think pretty much anyone who you've interacted or who we've interacted with as a community has really been keen to get involved with helping make that happen a little bit further, or helping just push us slightly better. So, I mean, the ability for us to not worry about VoiceFlow as a product, that we can use it and have all of that functionality, and then also the FreeCam functionality kind of donated to the good of the project, is something which is quite exciting, because I think that the tools that we're using really determine what we can build. And I think that, I mean, the really exciting thing is that all of this has been done, and it's not even April yet. And in January, at the beginning of the month, none of us knew one another. And that is quite a big achievement, considering that none of us have probably sat in the same room together, and we've been passing the ball backwards and forwards. But I think that is quite exciting, because that speaks to the nature of volunteers. And I think that for me, what has been so exciting is seeing multiple different teams all taking the initiative to do things. And I think that that's the exciting thing about volunteers and working with them. The downside is obviously that there's different levels of understanding about the industry. But what we've seen in our teams, at least, is that one of the most inexperienced members has offered the most value, because he's just put his hand up whenever there was an opportunity, and he'd get something done. And I think that, I mean, really to echo what Jess mentioned earlier, Cynthia, you really did create an environment for the team to be able to not be afraid of failing, but want to kind of dream and build something big. Because if it wasn't for the dream, we wouldn't have united to build the solution. And so I think there's a lot of really cool things at play here with what was built, what was dreamed, but kind of the magic of the volunteers, I think, who kind of keep it moving. And like, there's always just people who are like doing the things. And I mean, we didn't mention that earlier as much, but I think that like one of the real awesome things was the time zone, which in the beginning I thought, and sometimes I still do think that sometimes it is a little bit of a burden, but it is so awesome to be able to, like, for me, at the end of my day, put like a post in the ground and then wake up the next morning and someone's moved the post like far in that direction, because the team never sleeps. The team, it's this really cool like progress between time zones. And I think for me, that's also what's quite alluring for people, is they want to be involved in something, and it just requires like this kind of molding of, okay, cool, let's do this. And I think that we did that. I mean, it's a really cool product that we have that can do a lot of really cool things right now, and it is very helpful. So that's me.
And I would like to go back to the bot a little bit, because I think most of the viewers are from our industry, so we can dive a little deeper. And people can, by the way, scan the QR code on the right to give it a spin. And if you want to donate, you can do that on the left. It's all non-profit. But yeah, you already mentioned that, Nick. It also had to be simple with buttons, because when people are in stress, they don't want to type with the bot. But I think a good bot should always have the opportunity to chat and to click, right? So that's the same philosophy you guys handled.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we did, exactly. I mean, that was what we really wanted to do, was give the user the ability to interact with the bot in the way that they wanted to. So basically as minimal taps as they could to get to the final destination, or if they had the ability, they could then type the query in and get there exactly. And then after the query from the knowledge base is served, there'd be more buttons to say, do you want to go here or do you want to go there? So it was quite a blend backwards and forwards between like kind of the button UX and the knowledge-based response. I think that both of them had to actually work together, and I think that they really do work quite nicely. The one thing that was quite interesting is that we didn't use many utterances as hard-coded utterances, because we found that the large language model actually, the knowledge base responded very well on prompting within voice flow, just because of the way that you can set up the config of the model, but then also have another filter config that kind of refines what the final output is. So the tools themselves let you fine tune what that final output is. So yeah, I mean, I'm very happy with the buttons and the text. And then also actually most recently playing around with voice and the ability to talk and get a real-time translation. So if you talk to the bot in a different language, being able to get your language spoken back to you as well is something that we're really trying to, I mean, we're kind of there.
And I love that you said voice, Nick. I'm going to jump in right there. I think we all agreed early on the importance of accessibility, because we each have a strong UX background, right? So making sure that all users were empowered, regardless of what the situation was, and walking a mile and empathy mapping and think, where are these people in crisis? Some of them are frozen and they need to be told directly, you know, what is the tone of voice and persona and all that. But I want to get back to the voice. So that a visually impaired person, someone who identifies as being legally blind, can rock this system, and it can add just as much value for that user as is someone who's, you know, needs closed captioning and is hard of hearing. How do they work? How does voice play into everybody's lives, right? I think if I'm panicking and I'm running around the house and the thing can tell me what to do while I'm grabbing stuff, and I know what stuff to grab and how to take action, all of that is meaningful when the seconds are clicking and ticking away.
Right. It removes that cognitive fatigue of like, what do I do next and how?
That's right.
Yeah, and when a disaster strikes, people from any country can be visiting there or living temporarily. So yeah,
I think also one of the things that we really did was cater for those workflows for those users who aren't sure as well, because the user is going to come to the bot. And I think that that is what is really nice, was the ability for that workflow, checking first, are you in danger? If you are in danger, do this. If you're not in danger, cool, then we can chat. And it's at that point where we say, are you not sure what to do? And then guide the user down the path. So it's, Yeah, I think that's the guiding aspect is there, not just from like a UX point of view, but also from a content point of view when someone is panicking. And I think that you mentioned the voice under duress, Cynthia. That's a very important point. Is when you're in massive trouble, you're not going to be able to probably even type clearly.
That's right.
Even if you wanted to, you probably couldn't. So being able to cater for it on a voice platform is very helpful.
I remember early days, all the conversation designers, because one of the first things we did, Baron, was break everyone into teams. I created a scrappy volunteer form on Google Docs with my friend Jenna and circulated it on LinkedIn. And before you know it, there's over 20 volunteers. And it was like, what category do you want to volunteer in, right? There was data, there was conversation design, there was back end, front end, and then there was spreading the word, because that's where other super volunteers like Leo and Ricardo showed up at, who said, I really don't have any technical expertise, right? And someone who doesn't yet know and understand data and how it works, and that everyone can learn to do that, right? Probably wouldn't have signed up for data right away. But we hope to educate and welcome people and teach them how you can do that in the future, and how complex AI experiences really depend on amazing data, and it all works together. I feel like I'm off track, but that was all important to say.
It's a great sort of internship, right? If you don't have experience in this area yet, it's amazing.
Yeah. And it could not be achieved without tremendous volunteers. I mean, tremendous. So, yeah, that's that. I had the dream, but it takes a team, right? Because if it was myself, there would be no back end. Trust me. But I could sketch the front end, but I couldn't connect the two. So all those bridges, all those beautiful rainbow bridges I can imagine, activating it takes incredible volunteer work. And I love what you said earlier, Nick, about wanting to wake up. Like I used to wake up and have coffee and go to social media and the news and scroll just visually in the morning. And now it's replaced a habit with have my coffee and go to Discord and see what's done and look at the messages and what's happening. And when I talk with people in my life, I talk with my husband and our friends and family, I'm so jazzed that our rock star is like one's in South Africa and two are in the Netherlands and one's in Kenya, India. And I mean, it's just remarkable. It's truly remarkable and exciting. It's actually exciting. And yeah, Baron, I'll turn it over to you because I'm getting too bubbly.
No worries. Yeah, we already touched a little bit on how Lala works, but maybe you can walk us through again how this works, Cynthia. If a user goes to the website, what are the options, and what can they expect or do with the chatbot, with the AI assistant?
Well, the first and most important thing you can expect, I don't like that word, expectations, but you can count on us for reliable data. When you enter the experience, we have a drop-down menu on the top right, and that will display in our MVP the top 15 languages spoken in Los Angeles County. So knowing that you can understand this experience and it will meet you where you are at as a native speaker. Like you said, you may be visiting the city of Los Angeles when earthquake strikes, and you know this is a resource, and you too can get to safety and figure out your next move. From there, you've got those two choices I spoke to. I need help now. I want to help now. You either need critical help or you want it. And just by clicking one of those two buttons on the left or the right, it will guide you to enter what category. There's a drop down where you can select and choose the category that you most identify with needing help now or wanting to help now. And then it'll ask you for a local zip code, a postal code. When you enter those two things in, you'll see a lot of resources all at once. That's where the data comes in, that pulls together what kind of places are offering these services right now in your area. Okay, so that's
like the restaurants who offer free food for
free food for victims of the wildfire, as it was free food for first responders, right? Maybe clean bottled water or shelter, or where can I take my pets? What about animal assistance? You need pet food, you need shelter. Some people have large animals or exotic animals, birds and horses and things you don't think about.
Right.
mental health services. My gosh, there's a spiritual aspect. Where do you go when you're broken, when you have PTSD? That's not a joke. The anxiety that comes with these experiences, I know all too well, unfortunately, but it's that, resilience. Now that I'm on this side of things in life, and my gratitude for having survived those experiences, that make me kind of want to show up and give back and say, okay, we know this is how it affects people. What can we do to mitigate that and preempt that, so that our chatbot and our website are matchy and we're giving people accurate information and hope and options, shelter. Maybe I need a shower. And then, yeah, yes, you've been quiet. What would you like?
Well, one thing I wanted to add is something that Anne pointed out in the comments here. She's saying what's happening now is that the press has stopped, but people's lives are still flipped upside down, which I think is very important to bring out. And we recognize this, that there is a need for the attention to remain on, hey, well, we get that the fires have been put out, but how are people going to get back up on their feet? And Lala has all the information that Cynthia just nicely discussed about, where to find it and what actions to take next. And to have that translated in many different languages means that that's one less thing that they have to worry about after having lost everything, after having been displaced. It's not going to replace their home in any way, but it will get them started with understanding, well, where do I get started with replacing my Social Security, birth certificate? Where can I get financial help? All of that information. So they don't have to think about it. They don't have to scour the internet for this information. We're serving it to them.
And not only that, Jess she had the foresight to use her strong UX researcher background and suggest that we reach out, and I'll speak to this in a little bit, to some victims and survivors of recent catastrophes, the wildfires and hurricanes in Florida, right? And so being able to meaningfully connect you guys with survivors who were so kind. We're basically, the kinds of question we ask, they are tough questions. We're basically asking people to relive one of the worst days of their lives so that we can co-create a better experience together. That is not an easy ask. And I don't take that lightly. But the things that we're learning from these studies are meaningful. Like when we co-created this experience together, it wasn't on my mind, even in my, walk a mile in everyone's shoes hat. I didn't think to warn people about what are called pickers or looters and have that mindset. That's a tip. That's a pro tip, because we're trying to think of all the things a person might need. But unless you've really gone through that and it's your great-great-grandmother's thing that survived the whole, catastrophe, and then you were laying it out to get dry because it got wet and moldy, it gets nicked. Those are the types of things that, we can only find to improve the experience through user research and studies. So, and the answer is people's lives are upside down and they have good hearts and they're even willing to help us. Even the people who have lost absolutely everything are saying, I'll share my story. It might help someone next time. And that is amazing, right?
And Cynthia, can you share some standout moments or real world successes since launching?
Yeah, I just shared one. We have a woman who lost everything in Hurricane Helene in Florida in September. And she was kind enough to share her experience with us, her story. On Discord, we're very transparent. So we have the entire team now on Google Docs and now FreeCamp who can take the time to read through the UX questions and her answers. And then as conversation designers, we are learning from that. And then we'll go in and we'll create different experiences and user experiences, right? So that's a win. I feel like that's a huge win. Another win was, go ahead, please.
Oh, I was going to add, we also partnered with a church that your friend works at, right, Cynthia? Where
I was going to
put that on his webpage. Yeah, go ahead, take it away.
No, you're good. So a friend of mine, Big Steve, is longtime friend, and he's a pastor, and he went to a place called Global Vision. And at Global Vision, I got a text one day. I'm working, and I get a text that says, "There's 45 people on your site right now. I hope it doesn't break down either, because if we can't handle 45 in an emergency, it's a good pressure test, right? Bring more." And he says, "There's lots of people looking at you right now." Well, that's exciting, right? So I look at the transcripts. I'm looking on the back end and analytics, and like, "Ooh, who's in there? How's it going? I hope we're doing good." And one of those churches is in Pasadena. It's Lake Church. Pastor there found value in what we've created and said, "We would like to put LAHelpNow.org on our website." And it's right there up front. And the heartbreaking fact is that parish lost over 100 of their parishioners lost everything in the Altadena part of the wildfires recently. So, that's a huge success, that it's happening real time, that people are actually finding solace and help from us.
Yeah.
Good call out, Jess.
That's great. And Cynthia, you pretty quickly realized, okay, we have to build this in a generic way so we can serve at the next disasters, which will unfortunately happen.
Yeah.
Maybe, any of you can share more
Yeah,
about
I'm happy to jump into just the technicalities maybe of like what the next steps kind of look like, just based on what we've got, and then we can talk about like the actual plans. But what's really nice is just the way that the project's working is the heaviest liftings actually on the testing of the sources that we are serving to the users. So the inbound pipeline is heaviest on, is this a good link for us to use or a bad link for us to serve to the user? Because then what the kind of goal is from there, we can use all of those good links to then train the knowledge base per every new location that we go to. So I won't mention any location in the world, but just some next location has some big problem that needs to happen. The plan is that we could work with volunteers on the ground even to build their own locational data set there, and then use that knowledge base that is custom as a help now for that location. Because that, I think that's the thing that's really great about this and where VoiceFlow fits in, is the technology that we're at and the way that we can use this tech doesn't just solve the problems for Los Angeles. It solves the problems wherever people are needing to answer questions, because the reality is the advice that we're offering on the advice that is static, like get water, get food, is something that's probably quite standard across most places. It's really just you need to go to this corner over there to get the food, which is what the volunteers then on the ground can then do. So what's really cool is that what we've built with the technology here already has within the same engine the capabilities of having multiple different user personalities or location kind of where users in America or the Netherlands or Australia. And I told myself I wasn't going to do any locations where bad things could happen. But I mean, if anything does happen, the plan is that we could mobilize a force on the ground using this tech to really not rebuild from scratch, but pivot and add, which is really exciting, because that means that then there's scope to do more. And I personally like HelpNow more than just LAHelpNow, because I do see this tool as being something much bigger than just LA.
Thank you. That was the vision, right? I always thought it's HelpNow. And it's okay, I think, too, Nick, to talk about locations. I reached out to a friend on LinkedIn and did some geohistorical data pulling to predict, and AI to predict where the 10 most major incidents will occur globally. And I picked up the domains, because that can shift. It can be Australia, AUS, HelpNow. It can be the Netherlands, HelpNow, right? It can be, China, HelpNow, Japan, HelpNow. Everyone's going to need help. It's not a question of if, it's when. So if you're listening and you're out there and this resonates, we're ready to scale and we're ready to help your community. The more people that respond, I had a great meeting last week with a wonderful gentleman from Japan, a software engineer and brilliant mind. And he's like, stand by for introductions on the Japanese NASDAQ. We need you. We also have wildfire. We also have tsunami. We also have earthquake. Let's go. What? Activate. All right, yes. And then how do we set patterns in those communities, Nick, like you just talked about, with volunteers to create the data? If we look at the MVP and we use Los Angeles as a model to build off of, what would it look like if this summer's use case, for example, was to connect a pipeline, if you will, of, let's say, food security. Let's just say we chose the Netherlands, for example. One of our amazing volunteers, Suzanne, educated me about a community project where the government basically said, have this plot of land and make it a community garden and figure it out. We'll check back and see how it did in 5 years. She says, now it's great because people can walk down the street. You don't know what you're going to have for dinner. You pull up some carrots, you go home, you have carrots for dinner. I mean, that's fabulous. And then on a random Tuesday, if you want to get out of the house, get some steps and some fresh air, you go down and you work in the garden. That's what I'm talking about. What happens when you teach the communities how to sustain and feed themselves, or the local growers in Washington state who have such an abundance of produce when things are getting so unbelievably expensive and communities can't feed themselves properly and nourish themselves? If you connect local growers and farmers with excess abundance to people who are hungry and could really appreciate those donations, you've now taught communities how to self-help and patterns. We've bypassed the grid, right? And we've now know how to help one another in times of everyday wellness and crisis. So if you take away, the grid, at least we've already taught communities how to provide for themselves. And I think that's an unspoken goal or a use case of how this could also operate. Thoughts?
Right. Yes. But it's
Yeah.
undoable to really prepare, right? Because there's so many possible locations where something could happen. But you can, of course, look at maybe a country level or a state level in the US. But yeah,
City level, I think, is more realistic.
Yeah, I think having the ability to have all these resources in one place is a good resource, not just for preparation, but for education on when these disasters occur. I remember in elementary school, we used to have these fire drills and earthquake drills. And we always knew, like, okay, here comes that earthquake drill, go under the table, grab something.
Right?
And now it's like, once we're out of that school system, we don't have those drills, so we don't really think about it until the moment of. And so now that we have this tool, it also serves as an educational piece to empower the people, put them back in control, even if it feels like things are out of control.
right.
I love that analogy. I learned how to shut off the gas since this started, and I'm not a handy builder person, right? That's not one of my skills. I've also, what else have I learned? I learned not to drive over a down power line. That may sound obvious to some, but you'd be amazed at what I've Googled lately. All of this is important, right? Because how do you treat those moments when the winds are 80 miles plus, or 80 miles an hour, plus, and life happens, right? Like if I have a 4x4, could I go over it? Yeah, it might be, but no questions. There are no stupid questions.
Exactly.
So we try to think of everything that someone might need to know and put it all in one place.
Yeah. And talking about all these resources, online resources, Jess, can you elaborate a bit more on the RAG? RAG, how do you? So the Retrieval-Augmented Generation.
No, you're good. So the RAG model.
Yeah.
For those who are joining us today and learning about RAG model, it's I might need you to help me out with this, Nick. I stumble on this.
Retrieval-Augmented Generation.
Thank you. It's like twisting my tongue when I say it. Basically, what that means is we have this large language model, which we have trained with a certain data set, and that data set has been verified for these links are up to date. What does that mean? For example, in context, we, at the beginning of this project, had a lot of links to resources like Uber and Lyft, where they had certain discount codes for people to take a transportation service. But over time, as we were competing with the events, those services were no longer offered. So we did our due diligence to make sure that all the data trained in the knowledge base is accurate and up to date, so that when a user does go and if they talk into the digital agent and they say, I need help, I need transportation, they're going to receive links that are currently up to date and accurate with that information. nothing that's outdated. And we're actively cleaning those links, refreshing them, making sure that people have access to the most recent information.
Right.
One of the things that was really cool about us using the RAG pipeline within our responses was that the augmented generation was a lot more empathetic. So if you said my house is on fire and my dog is hurt, if we did it in the classic kind of utterances response way, we'd only really have like one kind of text response. And what we found is that with the retrieval-augmented generation, if I say it enough, it's just going to stick in my brain. But with us doing it like that, is we were able to give more empathetic responses to the user to kind of cater for more situations. But also, what is really cool about that was that we trained it to also respond with multiple languages. So it's the functionality that we have, we're actually relying, in some places where there's not enough training, we'll put more data of our exact responses. But basically what we have already is our RAG pipeline is looking at our knowledge base. And if the user asks a question in Japanese, for example, the bot continues to converse with that user in Japanese. And we've done testing through all of this, and the responses that we've seen have been really great, where it does slot the correct worksheet URL or correct website URL into the response, but actually matches the exact language of the user. So if it wasn't for RAG pipeline, I don't think that would have been possible.
Right. And I remember a funny anecdote. It's about the LLMs and their tokens. It's all about tokens, right? Because Cynthia, I think you used one of the first donations you got to buy more tokens. So the team could properly test stuff and build their thing.
That's right. That's where the donations are going, just so you know. And again, very generous sponsors from VoiceFlow. They blessed us with a lot of tokens initially, but as we discovered the capabilities and we saw the direction, we saw our North Star and knew where we were headed with RAG and LLMs, it became evident that that's where we needed to put the donations so that we could test and ensure that all native speakers of all the languages could have the same experience. Important.
So,
because my Dutch is horrible, but I love y'all. You guys are great. We have such great partners. Such great partners.
And yeah, what's the road ahead? What are the next steps for Lala and HelpNow? Are you working on partnerships? I know you're working on a lot, but please share a bit.
Thank you. I'm working on a lot. I'm ambitious and I dream big. If you've met me, you know that. But I do envision us scaling because of the first-class volunteers that we have. If we can continue this momentum and this frequency that we've created together, I really see this going far. Like Nick said, the vision is that we can plug in and help. HelpNow can help whatever community needs the help when they need it. And I think we could pivot and swarm and be up pretty fast if we needed to be, based on how quickly we created this model. If we needed to focus all energy for 24 hours on one place, I bet you'd be amazed at what we could deliver, right? Now the question is evangelizing this. How do we spread the word? Because I'm not an influencer or a social media marketing expert, right? How do we get the word out? I can't afford a PR person yet, but how do we organically do this? Thank you for gifting us and welcoming us onto LinkedIn Live today so that we could chat with people in our community and hopefully someone out there, anywhere in the world, my definition of out there, wants to continue our mission and support us and support our work. So what does that look like? We need angel investors. We have openings on the board of directors. If you are an expert leader in your area, and your area can be the social media and the marketing that I mentioned. It could be the back end. It could be architecture. It could be front end development. It could be conversation design. That's my like first family, but it doesn't mean that, each family isn't as important, because they all are. The spreading the word family, the data family, it's one big family. So wherever you feel you have skills and talents or just the heart to help, we have one of my favorite things that came out of this experience. There's about 15 favorites, but the latest favorite is families getting together and creating thank you cards to mail. Now the donations are a little bit to postage, because we want these beautiful little handwritten cards going to the people who are so kind, the survivors, to participate in our UX studies, or our donors who are so generous with us. There's just a homey vibe, a really good feeling about that, I think. It's really special. So.
And in our notes, I see Japan ?
Yeah, I spoke to that earlier. I think that Japan has, certain leaders in Japan have recognized the value in HelpNow.
Okay.
And I think as far as the road ahead, that we have big goals, because we know, look, these are the areas in the world that suffer, unfortunately, the most. When it comes to, Australia has horrendous wildfires, as does California. Indonesia is, plagued by earthquakes and, different tidal events. The Netherlands will have flooding issues, as does a lot of the world right now, with global warming. So there's climate crisis that is shifting and pivoting this planet, like it or not. And I think being prepared is something we can do to reduce our anxiety. What can you do? Well, you can do lots of things to help now, or you can use HelpNow if you need help and it's there, and it'll hopefully help you then, right? So.
Yeah, exactly. And I will paste a link in the comments of this video in a bit for people to volunteer, to sign up. So
Awesome.
yeah, please do, and hopefully
Thank you.
I think if I can maybe just add, just to iterate on what was said earlier, while we do have a really cool product, and I mean, while we do have a solution right now, I think one of the things that we are looking for are more volunteers, because the reality is that we've built it, but we do need to keep kind of pivoting and changing to the new locations. But the thing that is really great, and I wanted to just emphasize, is that it's also a great place to learn if you're wanting to dive into the skill set, because you're able to check on what is needed to kind of get the ball moving, because you'll see each of the different teams. And I think it's just the way to learn within a collaborative environment is very cool, because there's a safety net and there's no fear of failure, but you can also sit really shoulder to shoulder with very different people to learn from them. So just a call to, don't think that you need to be a programmer or conversational designer or back-end engineer or front-end designer. If you're someone who has an interest in just trying to make sure that people get good information, you can find yourself you'll be helpful at some place in the process. So I just want to echo that this isn't just something that we need hectic brain skill sets. It's also just clicking links, checking that sources are good.
That's right. Or being good with crayons. I mean, all of it. All of it matters.
Yeah, I'm looking at a few questions. I'll just put it up here from Richard. Can you talk a bit more about the improvement process with monitoring? He's also spent a few chapters about that in his book. Yeah, I don't know who can answer this one the best.
The improvement process with monitoring. I think, maybe we can answer this from the side of preemptive monitoring is a lot of really good testing. So the monitoring capabilities that we have at the moment aren't outside of VoiceFlow. They're just within the VoiceFlow platform and what we can gather from Google Analytics. So what we've just done is to make sure that if users are going down certain paths, that we have multiple different people testing them and trying to cover those bases preemptively, that we can trigger the problems to then solve them. So I think that's really the best thing that we could do from a monitoring. That's quite a difficult question to answer.
And I guess during a disaster, of course, utterances will come to the bot that you haven't foreseen, and then the LLM will pick up a lot of it. learn with each disaster.
Yeah, that's actually kind of the thing, is that there aren't default fallbacks that are being hit in a traditional sense. So with a normal NLP or NLU bot, there'll be questions that you cater for, and then there'll be the fallback questions which people answer that are outside of scope. And what's really cool is the RAG pipeline is actually what's handling all of those text queries. So we don't have this direct response for certain things. We have the menus that we've hard coded, and then the knowledge base then computes the response then for that specific user.
Yeah.
We get
And
a
then
shout
just
out.
something in terms of improving, because it's so early and we haven't really got a ton of people using it yet. We want to collect more of that data, because once we do have the data, we can understand from the voice of the user what improvements are going to be necessary, which ones can wait off, and so on. Ideally, we do want to make sure that there are never anything that's waiting too long in the backlog to improve. Of course, number one priority is making sure that those resources are up to date.
Yeah, and I see another. Thank you, Richard. That was a good question. And thank you, Andrew, for your compliment on the power of community. It is amazing. They are amazing. It's an incredible experience. I would encourage you to reach out. If you like, it's just good. It's goodness. In a time of uncertainty, this thing is powered by love. I have to say it, and hope and positivity. You look at the news and life and what's going on, and it's not so optimistic, is it? And this has truly been a place where I've escaped a lot of that and said, I want to do good. I want to do something good. I want to make a difference. I want to help. And I find that all of the volunteers are very like-minded. The core volunteers, there are people I still consider a core member. They've had to bow out for different reasons, because we've got full-time jobs, we've got families, we've got new families, we've got, medical, mental health crisis. It's life, right? It's life. So you show up and you do what you can when you can. And it's really been amazing. Richard also asked about how many use cases do we have? And I think Dr. Jess hit it the nail on the head, so to speak, when she said, not a lot. Our MVP launched about 30 days ago, people. So we are very green, and we do encourage you to reach out and help. Hopefully we'll have more use cases with the outreach of the local churches who are putting us on their websites. That's big for us. And I don't know what languages they speak yet, but our bot's ready to handle 15 currently.
So you do have some sort of playbook ready for when the next disaster?
Yes.
All in your head.
Yes. Go-to-market campaign. No, that's still scrappy and in process. But again, I'm being guided by some incredible volunteers on our board of directors. Who have already done stuff real time. Gokul Alex of India has helped his state of Kerala deal with floods in 2019. That is a firsthand experience. He's very, very seasoned in navigating, and he's an incredible engineer and philosopher and kind of the whole package. So when you pair empathy with technical expertise, these are the types of minds that are guiding us, right, on how to scale. And yes, we do have a plan. If you want to hear more, check back on the next LinkedIn Live.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're almost talking for an hour already.
Wow.
Always goes by really fast. Sometimes I think, will I have enough to talk about?
And then it flies by.
Enough to talk about, especially with this unique project. And Cynthia, I will give the shout out to the volunteers in the comments as well.
Thank you.
But big shout out to your energy and initiative to bring this all together.
My pleasure. It's truly my pleasure. And I want to thank all of my core volunteers from my heart. You all are what make this possible. You've made my life better. You've made a difference. Sometimes when I get stressed, my husband says, but if it all ended today, look at the good you guys have done. Look at what you created. Don't put that shadow over your head. So yeah, I want to talk about Jenna Saunders and you, Jess, and you, Nick, and Behrend, you, and Namso, Denise, Leo, and Suzanne, Prial, and Curtis, and Gloria, and Julia, and Ricardo, and so many, many more.
Exactly.
Yeah, but thank you all. And hopefully that list grows. So reach out. Anything you guys would like to say? Thank you for staying awake. Nick's in South Africa, you guys. Let's give him a round of applause. Stand up,
It's
sir,
only
on
10
Saturday.
o'clock. It's
You
only
know?
10 o'clock.
Yeah. I mean,
Already
thank you,
10.
brother.
For me, it's 9 p.m.
You too, Baron. Jeez, see, but this is what's up. This is the energy. This is what we bring. It's incredible.
Yeah,
And
so I missed a few things. I asked questions you already mentioned, but it's also multitasking and time zones. But yeah, you were saying something, Nick, but I think you were on mute.
Oh, no. I mean, if I have to say my last words here is
It sounds dramatic.
I've made notes here. You learn by doing, so embrace challenges. And I think, I mean, for myself, like I've learned the most when I put my hand up for scary things, and I really challenge. If you want to grow, if you want to learn, try and figure out how to switch that thing in your brain that you like challenges, because I think every challenge that you overcome becomes a little badge of honor that you can look back on when you think about what you can do in future. So if we didn't think about creating this, have a dream, we wouldn't have, and people didn't put their hands up, we wouldn't have anything here. But the dream and the workers, we made it happen. That's it for me.
Beautiful words. I don't know if you can top that, Jess.
Yeah, obviously.
Sure. Challenge accepted. Speaking about challenges.
Go, Jess.
No, I'm kidding. Like everything's true to what Nick said. And, you know, one thing I wanted to point out for anyone that might be hesitating, for any people who are in the middle of a career change, a career pivot, or students looking to get a foot in the door into the tech space, I think this is a really great opportunity for you. Again, this is the very safe environment to experiment in. And also look at it as an opportunity to be the change you want to see in the world. I know that sounds very cheesy, but it's true. Like there's a lot of pain in the world right now. And even if it's a small opportunity where you can do this one thing to alleviate one more pain point, I think that's good, because in the end, it keeps adding up to something much bigger when we come together as a community. So that's what I would end with.
That's right. Well done.
Yes, amazing.
Yeah, I love that. You know, how many volunteers we have are open to work, and what a beautiful thing to do with your time while you're hustling. You know how hard it is to apply for work when you're out of work? That is a full-time thing, and it's not easy in today's market. So I really have a high level of respect for people who came to me and said, you know, I don't really know so much about this, but I'd like to learn more. Can I volunteer to this team and grow? Absolutely. So Baron, didn't mean to cut you off, and this is your show, so take us out.
No, it's our show. And yeah, I was thinking, it sounds strange, but I was thinking let's do another LinkedIn Live after the next disaster, but it sounds so horrible to say a thing like that, like we're hoping for one. But yeah, we know it will happen anyway. So, and it helps us grow, right?
I think it's hoping to help, though.
Yeah,
it's coming.
It's kind of hoping to help, though, because I mean, there was that challenge earlier, Cynthia. I mean, you mentioned, like, let's say there is this hectic disaster somewhere. I kind of do like the challenge of trying to make it happen as quickly as possible to help those people. And I think the thing is, what we've done now is the MVP of what we can do. So now we're ready, and now it's just seeing if we can get things a little bit better. And I think that the engine of what we have is great. Now it's just when something else happens, we need to make a decision, and how do we get to the ground quickly. And I think that you're right. I mean, if we have the right crowd, the right sources, a day or two, I think we can make really big things happen.
So I know we've gone over, but Nick, I think you just organically created the best call to action I've ever heard, which is if you're listening, and your community's in crisis, if you have that next, if you're on the ground where that next emergency happens, reach out. I dare you to reach out and see what we can do in 24 hours. Let's go.
Exactly.
Cool.
Go.
Yeah. So let's round this up. I think people know how to reach us, or they can go to LAHelpNow.org.
They can go to LAHelpNow.org. They can email us at our very fancy email, LAHelpNow @gmail.com.
Wow, was it still available? Great.
Yeah. So that's it. That's it. LAHelpNow.org. And also LinkedIn. You can find Dr. Jess, the researcher, Baron,
Yeah,
Nick, or myself.
exactly. And the next Entrepreneurs LinkedIn Live interview will be on April 8th with Blend.ai. Some great guys from the
Awesome.
West Coast, friends of yours, Cynthia.
Yes, Bland is amazing in the voice world. They are blowing up right now. So if you love voice, and yeah, just make sure you mark it on your calendar. You don't want to
Exactly.
miss this one.
And that's a nice bridge to the 6th episode of Beers and Bots happening on April 17th in Amsterdam, because Cynthia, you're coming to Europe. You're a big Europe fan.
I am a big Europe fan. I
So
love going.
you'll be at the event, and the Blend guys also sponsor us, so that's awesome. Yeah, you can find everything on botrepreneurs.live. It's a really difficult URL, but I hope you figure it out. But anyway, yeah, thanks, Jess, Cynthia, and Nick, for
Thank you, Baron. Thank you.
knowledge
Thank you.
and great stories.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and we just keep on pushing this project, and yeah, have a great day. And thanks
HelpNow,
everybody for watching.
the app you don't want to use.
Exactly.
Thanks.
Bye bye.